Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Sciences student panel as part of the September Open Days 2020. Thank you so much to the current students who are joining us now. Would you like to go around firstly and introduce yourselves? So if you want to go on the order I've got on my screen, so Rowan, then Faris, then Emily.
Hi, I'm Rowan and I'm a second year or going into second year studying engineering.
Hi, I'm Faris and I'm a fourth year medical student.
I'm Emily, going into third year doing bio-NASCI and specialising in pathology.
Fantastic, thank you so much. So we've got a load of questions that have been pre-submitted, but anyone who's watching live on Facebook, do feel free to comment some questions as well if you've got them, and we'll get to those if we've got time. So my first question for you all is, why did you decide to come to Cambridge, and how did you decide which college you wanted to apply to?
So should I go first?
Yeah, if you'd like.
Yeah. Right. So I decided to go to Cambridge because I really like the supervision sort of structure, and I quite like the idea that it was just so personal, because in all my supervisions it's just me and one other student and the supervisor, and it's just so useful to be able to ask those questions, and you actually get to go much more in depth into the subject compared to other unis when it's sort of just you go to the lectures with 300 odd people and that's sort of the end of contact. So I think that was my sort of main motivation for going to Cambridge, and it sort of gave you that sort of opportunity you don't get many other places. In terms of St John's, I didn't look at a huge number of colleges on the open day. I sort of went to St John's and it was so pretty, and that was sort of what drew me to it. And the accommodation was so nice. There wasn't really much other motivating factor there.
Yeah, so for me, I think the reason I chose Cambridge was just, especially for medicine, I really enjoyed what the course structure, the way it was laid out. So you had 3 years of preclinical science and then 3 years of clinical, because when I was deciding like sort of what I wanted to do at university, I wasn't really sure on medicine, but I knew I didn't really want to do like do research later on, but I wanted to do like a science degree. So I'm glad Cambridge gave me the option of like spending 3 years just pretty much doing a science degree, and then now I'm just finally starting to do some actual clinical medicine stuff. And then with regards to why St John's College, yeah, I was pretty much the same as Rowan. I didn't really look at that many colleges, but I just sort of, there's a website online, it's called whichcambridgecollege.com, and you can go on it and it just tells you what facilities each college has, give you some sort of like peer reviews of the colleges. Yeah, so I just went on that and like found a college that I pretty much had anything I need and then also looked nice, and then that's why I chose St John's.
And the natural sciences course at Cambridge really appealed to me because of how broad it is, and you can do chemistry and biology, and even if you had an interest in biology in first year and you enjoyed your chemistry module, you can actually go into a complete direction to what you might initially come into university with. So I really liked just that broad coverage. And why St John's? I did come to the open day and I just really liked its location. I liked its accommodation, but I also like how big the college is. I wanted to be in a big college and the opportunity to meet lots of people within college as well.
Great, thank you. So some of you touched on this a little bit with that answer, but how did you decide what subject you wanted to apply for? I guess both at Cambridge and for your other options as well. And sort of also when did you make that decision?
I decided very early on I wanted to do engineering. I liked physics, like maths all the way through school, but it was kind of, I didn't really want to just sit sort of at a desk just writing answers to questions. I actually wanted to do something practical, and the engineering course gives us so much practical opportunity. You've got to do Lego, you've got to build bridges, and it's just that really excited me. And it's sort of the same idea at other universities, that just the practical element that if I got from engineering that you didn't so much get from other degrees.
I think it was quite late for me. I mean, I did all sciences at A levels, so maths and then some sciences as well. But I wasn't really sure on what I wanted to do at university until I started doing some work experience. So I did some work experience in more of like a sort of lab setting, and I realised that that sort of setting just wasn't for me. And then when I did some volunteering on a hospital ward, and I realised I really enjoyed the more social aspects, while also obviously there was the underlying science as well. So that's what made me sort of choose medicine.
So actually throughout year 12, I actually wanted to do biomedical engineering, but I talked to a few people and thought that that was going to narrow me down too early. So instead I changed to biology because that's always been my interest. And so especially with the natural sciences course, I could still have, again, the broad aspect of it. And I could choose 2 biology modules and choose like a material science or chemistry or even physics. And so actually I only decided to apply for natural sciences at Cambridge only in the summer before application started.
Great. That's really interesting. Thanks, everyone. So moving on a bit, so to the application process itself, how did you find the application process in general, and in particular, what was your interview like?
So I think the main thing about the application process is it is really so long, because obviously you apply in October and you don't even find out about, you get having the tests, and you don't find out about interviews until later on. So it's kind of sort of keeping the motivation up also to remember that you had to sort of keep doing the next step. I think in terms of the interviews, I was pretty terrified before them and stressed all throughout them. But I think if when you actually get there, and the interviewers are normally quite nice at the start and sort of set on the nerves, and it was actually, I think I found it quite fun in the end. Just I got to talk about something things I was really passionate about. I have a major thing for F1, and I spent about 15 minutes of one of them sort of talking about that, and that sort of, I think as soon as you start talking about something you're passionate about, everything becomes much better. And then obviously there's a long wait to find out the results in January, which was possibly actually the worst bit, having to spend the entire Christmas worrying about what happened. But I guess, yeah.
I think, well, yeah, for medicine, it's the applying to Cambridge isn't really that different, because you're gonna have to apply early anyway. You have the early deadline for medicine anyway, and then you also, if you're going to do medicine, you also have to do UK CAT. The only extra sort of thing you have to do for Cambridge medicine is the BMAT exam. So in terms of, I guess, it's not really that much extra work versus just a normal medicine application. And then in terms of the interview, it was all right. It's not as traumatic as you might think. It's just, I think if you get some practice speaking beforehand, so practice with whoever you can, then it'll go a lot smoother. I think that's the biggest sort of difference from what you're normally used to doing at school. It's normally everything's sort of handwritten, and you're not really used to thinking out loud and sort of like talking in person rather than writing down.
And for the natural sciences, there's an assessment at the beginning of November, and 2 weeks after your assessment, you'll get, if you pass, which I think, if you pass, you get an interview mid-November for about mid-December, and so you have like a whole month to prepare and make sure you know what you're interested in, and really prepare and know, make sure you're fluent with your knowledge and stuff. And at the interview, there were 3 interviews. The first one was kind of getting to know you, like just make sure you're comfortable. And then the second one was the qualitative one, where it was more maths. And the third one was the qualitative one, which is more bio, for me, anyway.
Thank you. Some really good tips there as well for preparing for interviews, like making sure you know your knowledge, you've got all your knowledge down, and practicing talking about it as well. So if people are applying this year, do remember those tips. Great. So moving on to when you guys started uni, what was your first impression of the college when you joined it as a current student?
I think the first impression was quite how big it was. I had a room sort of as far away from the entrance as possible, so when it's taking 6 or 7 minutes to walk in every time, it's a bit like, wow, how am I ever going to sort of get used to this? But I think everyone settled in so quickly, and after about a week, and then as soon as this work started, you sort of got instantly into the rhythm of everything, and then it sort of just felt sort of normal very, very quickly.
Yeah, no, so similar things, as in the college is so big, but then as soon as you exit the college, you actually realise that Cambridge is actually really quite small, so you do feel at home really quickly. Like when I was going to lectures, more than, I think, like 80% of the time was just spent walking through the college, and then I'd literally exit the college and then 2-minute walk to the lecture theatre. So yeah, once you get here, you'll realise it feels very homely.
I think my first impression was actually how normal everyone was, because I always had the impression that everyone's going to be like super studious and you never see anyone because everyone's studying, but actually there is quite a big like work hard, play hard culture, I feel, and we do really enjoy ourselves as well as the studying, and you do have a lot of time to socialize with people in the bar, wherever, and yeah, I really enjoyed that part as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Hey Tom, thank you for joining us.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I had a thing come up.
That's totally fine. So we're just on Facebook Live to catch you up. So if you just want to introduce yourself and your subject, and then the question that we're on at the moment is what your first impressions were of the college when you joined it.
Okay, hi, yeah, I'm Tom Hassan. I'm just about to go into 3rd year, gonna start doing zoology. So biological, natural sciences. I do rowing and I'm on the JCR and president of the Penn Society and a few other things like that. First impression, yeah, so like Emily, I was here a week before most people because of the we had like a before term started biological maths workshop. Is that what it's called? Something like that anyway. And that meant we had a couple of days here before most of the other freshers arrived. So apart from the international freshers. So it was a much quieter first impression, but just so friendly, so friendly. The JCR back then was just amazing, showing us around and taking us to do bowling and all sorts of stuff like that. Gave us a little like scavenger hunt around Cambridge to take photos with things. So I really remember those first couple of evenings, and it was really welcoming, I think, is the key thing there. And we actually learned a lot of the maths, which was really useful later on. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Sorry, you mentioned the JCR. Does anyone want to just explain briefly what JCR is?
Yeah, so the JCR is kind of like I guess like student council, if you've had one of those at school, student body representative to the college at the college level. So there's CUSA, which is the university-wide one, Cambridge University Students' Union, and the JCR, which is the junior combination room for specifically within Johns. And that they organize ENTs, which are the parties that college throws. So I'm not sure how that's going to look going forward, but usually, and they represent in terms of talking about costs of accommodation and negotiating that with college and various things in terms of representing the students, as well as providing resources and welfare events and that kind of thing. So it's pretty wide ranging. And my specific role is academic and careers. So I run a careers email list, and then there's some other academic bits like library committee and a few other things like that. So.
Great, thank you. Cool, so moving on, we start back with Rowan again. When you started, how long did it take you to sort of make friends and feel comfortable in college?
Well, I was really lucky in the fact that we'd set up a sort of a group chat before term started and had already made really good friends with quite a few people on there. We had gone on holiday with them, some of them in the start of September. So I did come already knowing about 20 people really quite well. But then some of my best friends now are people I didn't know at all before. But Freshers Week is so good for mingling in the fact that there's just sort of so many events every day. You're kind of forced to meet new people. You don't really have much choice in it. And it's so easy with the college system to sort of keep seeing the friends because you see the same people in your staircase every day pretty much. So, and also found because of the course, because of the way it works in Cambridge, the people doing your course at your college, you're going to spend so much time with because you're sort of with them in lectures every day and in labs and everything. So I guess by sort of the end of about week 1, I was already friends with quite a few people that I had never known before, just in virtue of the fact I had to spend so much time with them.
Yeah, no, similar things. It's just you spend a lot of time with the same people in you go to lectures together, you go to supervisions together, and then you're also that just as a byproduct of that, you end up having free time together. So you have lunchtimes off together, and then sort of any sort of break you also have with the same people. So yeah, like a week, and then you're stuck with the same people pretty much. So you sort of they're your friends. Yeah, it's really not too long.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you make two groups of friends. One is like your immediate or three groups actually. One is your immediate staircase or your floor, and then you have your subject friends, and then you have maybe your extracurricular society friends, and sometimes they might all like interlink and come together. But it's pretty fast. You'll make friends within the first week, definitely.
I remember my brother taught me a trick for helping remember people's names, where he said, just when you meet them, associate them with a famous person who already shares that name. And then by having known people's names, it meant it was much quicker to make lots of friends with people. And then for me in particular, rowing was the big one, because you spend a lot of time with them. So I think that was a nice way to make friends with me.
Brilliant, thank you. So more on the academic side of things, how big of a step up from A levels did you find it?
I found that they did quite a good job of easing us in. So the first couple of weeks, I felt was quite a small step. I felt there was quite a lot of support from the department, and we were just sort of going over A levels topics, particularly in maths. The entire first term was just A level further maths. So, but I then so it's quite gradual, but certainly by the end, I realised there was quite a big step up of what we've been doing the previous year, mainly just in the fact of the amount of independent study you're expected to do and how much sort of thinking you're meant to do for yourself, and you're meant to be working stuff out for yourself.
Yeah, I don't think the biggest step up is, I guess, that you have such a large quantity of stuff to learn. There isn't really, I guess, especially for my subject, you don't really have any sort of transition period. It's sort of, you just get given the content and you've got to start learning it, and you just learn a lot of content in a lot of detail. So it's not necessarily confusing or hard to understand. It's just the fact that there's a lot of it. So I think, yeah, you just got to, over time, slowly build yourself up as a sort of different type of learning. It's not really cram. You can't really cram it like you do A levels. I guess you need like a good 3 months to cram it, which isn't really cramming at that point. So that's the biggest change.
Yeah, I do think there's quite a big step up, definitely with the independent learning. In Bionansky, there's so many different modules. If you're doing a module that's not completely related to what you did at A level, they will go into that quite quickly, I think. For example, if you didn't do biology of cells and that is open for anyone, they don't ease you in. There's one lecture at the start that's like maybe just overview of A level, and then you're going straight in. And it's quite in depth, and there isn't like worksheets that you might get in A level. You have an essay every week to do, but there's just a lot of independent learning, consolidating. Yeah, so I think definitely a big step up, but not one that you can't manage, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I'd echo that to say that the summary lectures, it seemed like they covered the whole of A level in like 3 lectures, which just is, yeah, I think content-wise it's done a lot quicker. They don't so much give you the time to go over it that you would with A level. They sort of, here's the information, now you have to go away and make sure that you understand that. But I think the fact that we have the supervisions to go over it and to check through it made it a manageable transition. It is a step up, but you'd hope it is a step up. So it was good though.
Brilliant. Great. So sticking with the academic stuff, what does an average day look like to you?
So in first year I tended to have labs a few days a week and lectures sort of the rest of the time. So I had 5-9 a.m. a week with lectures about 9 till 12 every morning, and then labs in the afternoon. So it was quite full on, and the fact that there was constantly sort of stuff going on, and I was in the department probably about 25-26 hours a week, which means at least there's lots of contact time. And then I had about two supervisions a week in college, and they were normally sort of at 5 or 6 in the evening, so out of the way of the labs and lectures. And obviously because I also rowed, so that was then several mornings a week, so I'd been going straight from rowing to lectures to labs. It's all quite full on, but good fun.
Yeah, every day is really quite different. It's not really like school. You don't really, or especially for my course, you're not really, you're not working non-stop. You don't have sort of contact hours non-stop from 9 to 5. You might have a lecture at 9 a.m. Then like 2 hour free time, lecture at 12, and then maybe lunch, and then practical in the evening, practical in the afternoon. So you have a lot of free time during the day where you can sort of do whatever you like. And then you always have a supervision in the evening. So sort of 6ish or 7ish, you'd have an hour-long supervision. And then outside of that, it's sort of up to you what you do with your time. So extracurricular activities. So yeah, rowing obviously in the mornings, and then sometimes you'd have like afternoon trainings for if you have some sort of sports, and then weekends would pretty much be spent just either having matches on a Saturday, for example, and then catching up on some work.
With Natskis, especially in first year, we actually have lectures on Saturday mornings as well. But I think Natski has quite a large number of contact hours, maybe 20 to 30 hours, maybe 25 hours a week. But there is still enough time for you to get involved in lots of different extracurricular activities. Lots of people choose to do rowing in first year as well. And you definitely have time for that. And in the evenings, it's often meeting your friends at the bar, or having a chill session in the kitchen or something like that. So it's a good work-life balance, but yeah, your days get pretty full as well.
Yeah, for me personally, I don't really remember much of first year, but this year it started into quite a nice rhythm. I'd usually have training in the morning, lectures, a bit of time before the lectures to do some reading, then the lectures, then more time in the afternoon either to go over it or for labs or practicals or writing up projects or writing up essays. And then by the time the evening comes around, what I usually did was cook a big meal with my other housemates. We'd eat together, and or we'd have evening training depending on what day of the week it was. And then, yeah, a little bit of a chiller evening, probably do some lighter reading or whatever else. So full on days, but good days.
Great. So a few of you touched on sort of just how many contact hours you have. How do you feel about the contact hours that you have compared to the contact hours that students doing arts degrees do?
I think there's certainly more contact hours for doing science degrees and arts degrees. I have a friend doing history, and I think she puts it about 9 or 10 contact hours a week with only one supervision. So there's certainly a lot more. I think that's just because we're having all the lectures like the art students are having, but we've also got all the labs on top. And if you're in the labs for 7-8 hours a week, it sort of suddenly feels like a lot more. And I think that was the main difference. It was just sort of adding that labs on top of all of the contact hours, and then still having to do the same amount of sort of extra work as them. That it sort of felt like we were seeing a lot more of the lecturers and supervisors.
Yeah, no, it's definitely more contact hours, but then I think potentially less sort of independent work required. I know a lot of the friends I know that do sort of more arts-based subjects. They're constantly reading like hundreds of books, it seems. And as a medical student, I haven't had to do that ever. So I think it's just a different sort of work.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes we might have 2, 3, or even 4 times the number of contact hours, but that additional contact hour they might be spending reading, but they might have more fluid in what they do with their own time, whereas we have to go to like the labs at this time or the lectures at that time. So we might have less freedom in what we do with our time, but the actual time spent on studying for all different subjects, I think, would probably be similar, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more contact hours and it's a bit more structure, but that was definitely helpful for me personally. I think, yeah, it's just reflective of the different way the subjects work. We don't spend as much time reading all those other books, but we do spend time in the lectures and then reading scientific papers and doing our own independent research. So they're just different, but yeah.
Great, thank you. So how much of a choice do you get about what you're actually studying, so your modules in particular?
The first 2 years of engineering, you get pretty much no choice. The first year I had no choice at all, and the second year we get to choose one of the papers in the last term. So it really isn't much, but that sort of means you get a really general overview of all of engineering. For the 3rd and 4th year, you get to specialise a lot more and pick sort of what type of engineering you do, sort of like mechanical or electrical. And then really it is up to you. There's about 100 or so different modules to choose from, and you can pick about 10 of those. So it gets much more freedom from that point onwards.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same for medicine. You don't get any choice in 1st or 2nd year about what you study. So it's just a fixed sort of structure that you have to follow. And then in 3rd year, you get to choose one of pretty much, I think you choose any sort of, they're called part 2s at Cambridge. You can just pick any part 2 and as what you do. I think most people end up just choosing a science one because that's what they're more interested in. But I know people that have sort of gone to some politics or history and even engineering as well. So yeah.
I think with NatSki is quite different. As I said at the beginning, you can choose every single year what modules you want to take. And as I said, also that you can change your path. Because in 1st year, there isn't that many to choose from. They're all quite broad, like physics, material science, earth science, biology. There's a few biology ones. So you're keeping that option open. And then 2nd year, you specialize a bit more. And you choose 3 instead of 4 modules in 1st year. And then in 3rd year, you specialize even more. For some modules in 2nd year, they might require you to do certain modules. In 1st year, for example, physics, you might need to do maths. But a lot of them are just suggested that you do a certain one, and you can catch up on that learning yourself. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility and a lot of choice, which I think is one of the big plus of natural sciences here.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the major factors that got me to apply to Cambridge, was just how broad it is in 1st year, that I was able to do earth sciences and then the biological stuff as well. So I think that really helped to keep it broad, to have that grounding in the way that I guess the engineering and medics were saying that they get from having it so broad. You kind of have that in 1st year as well, because you have to pick multiple of these subjects, which are quite broad in themselves, although you do get to pick whereabouts in science. And then, yeah, specializing later on. So yeah, and then as you go up, you pick fewer subjects, and there are more subjects to choose from. So it's good. I think there's plenty of range and plenty of scope, and because of the way the supervisions work, they can then direct you where what you write in your essay doesn't have to be what's just on the course anyway. So you can always do wider reading, and that improves improves the quality of your work as well.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more questions about kind of course structure, which were, can you do a research project and can you do a year in industry?
So the 4th year, half of the marks do come from a large research project, which is normally with a company. So you're sort of putting there and you solve one of their actual problems and sort of write a thesis on that. In terms of year in industry, it isn't officially put into the degree. So most people don't do one, and you just go straight through the 4 years. However, it's sort of encouraged. So if you do apply for one and get it, you can intermit, and it's normally done in between the 2nd and 3rd year. And you can take a year off then to do a year in industry.
Yeah, so in the 3rd year, you can choose to do a research sort of lab-based product, a lab-based research project, or you can choose to do a sort of literature review dissertation style paper, which will just be sort of reviewing articles online and doing so you won't be entering a lab, but yeah, you do have the option of doing one of those.
Yeah, same with Paris. In 3rd year, we can choose a lab-based research or a dissertation, one on literature review. And there is more competition for the research projects in general, but yeah, most people do still get it if you apply. Year in industry, I'm not too sure. However, there is a Caltech program that runs in the summer for science students at St. John's to go to Caltech and I think do a project there. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Yeah, year in industry physiology is not not the usual thing, but you are really encouraged to do the summer projects or Christmas projects or Easter projects, because they can make a big difference in terms of where you're at with understanding, like actually experiencing the field itself. But usually you do it either in between, like before doing a master's or something. You can do that quite easily. So not so much a year in industry, but definitely encouraged to get like field experience or work otherwise.
Great. Cool, thank you. And final academic thing, what's the best thing about your course?
I sort of touched on it earlier, but the best part, I think, is the practical work. And we sort of do, I don't know if you call them experiments or not, but they're things that pretty much none of the other degrees are doing. I think just after Christmas, we did a project over 2 weeks where we just had to sort of build a bridge. They just gave us a load of metal and access to all the tools in the engineering department and said, off you go. And then 2 weeks later, we attached 100 kilograms to the end of it and looked whether it worked or not. And I think stuff like that is just sort of so exciting and such a change from just the lectures. And I think that is my favourite part.
Yeah, that's quite a tough one, really. Yeah, I don't know. Some bits sort of like certain topics stick out more than others, but you don't really, once you're in like fourth year medicine, you've entered the clinical school, you don't really look back on the preclinical years with that many fond memories. You're just kind of glad they're over, because it's a lot of work and you kind of want to get to the clinical stuff and start seeing some patients. So yeah, I think some certain topics more interesting than others, but it's good to be finally moving on and doing some other stuff.
And as I said before, I think my favorite part is also just how varied the course is. I'm in my third year now and doing pathology, and I don't think I would have ever thought that that would be where I would specialize in. But the fact that we choose at each step has allowed that kind of exploration of your interests and exploration of other interests that you might not even have thought about before. And I think, yeah, that's definitely my favorite part.
I think mine is how we're kind of encouraged to experience a lot of the stuff that you do in academia early on. So in my second year, we did a project on plastic, or I did a project with a couple of other students on plastic pollution in the lakes of Europe. And then our supervisor emailed us recently to say, the work you did, like, I think you've done sufficient, that as that's part of like a smaller part of the larger project that I'm working on, I'm going to include you as co-authors on the project, on the paper that's getting published. So that's like pretty incredible, and something that like a lot of supervisors, like, they just don't have to do. So I thought it was really good of him that he did that. And just then, like, working with these people who are so smart and intelligent, and you're with them, you're like, wow, you're just such a giant of an intellect. And then just like soaking that up.
That's really great. Thanks, everyone. So moving on to the non-academic stuff, some of you have kind of touched on this a bit before, but firstly, what's the social life like? And secondly, what do you do that's like outside of your degree?
So I find social life is really good. One of the favourite ways to socialise is there's formal hall, which is 6 days a week. So me and my friends used to go pretty much daily you get a 3-course meal, which is silver service. And that was really great. Or I think I've cut out. So no, it's fine. And that was such a good way to socialise at the end of the day, to be able to go and sort of spend time, an hour and a half, having a nice meal. In terms of extracurricular stuff, I think I row, but I feel like quite a lot of people here do that, so I'll talk about something else. I also was a member of the union, and I sort of signed up at the start of Michaelmas in the first term, and I said I'd done some debating before. And 2 weeks later, I was debating at Imperial Uni in London, and I find that part of Cambridge is so exciting. There's so many opportunities, and it was such a great experience. And the union is really great. They get in speakers pretty much weekly, and you can get to watch debates and all sorts. And obviously I'm more interested in the debating side, but you're just taken off to competitions. You can judge the schools debating, and there's sort of so many opportunities in that area.
Yeah, so So if we talk about what you did, what extracurricular stuff. Yeah, so I did a lot of in first year. I sort of experimented with quite a few stuff because at school I sort of, especially during my sixth form, I sort of slacked with all the extracurricular stuff, and I sort of just focused on my work. So when I started up in first year, I sort of tried a bit of everything. So I tried a bit of rowing, I tried a bit of rugby, I tried a bit of gymnastics, I tried a bit of lacrosse, and then sort of just over the time, then I sort of stuck with just one or two of them. So I now pretty much just play rugby, and every now and then I'll do some lacrosse as well. So there's definitely loads of stuff you can do, and it's all a lot of fun.
I think the social life at John's is great, especially I think you'll kind of find the friends that will share the same kind of interest and what they want to do. I agree with Rowan, the formals are great, and not many colleges, well, some colleges don't offer it every single night, but John's do, other than Saturday. A bar is a great place for socializing, especially after formals. Everyone loves to go there. As I said, kitchen, lots of people hang out in the kitchen, and people do take the nights off and go to clubs, and that is a large part of uni as well. And extracurricular wise, lots of different sports that you can try out, and you don't even have to be really, really good to join or play. Like at the very start, I joined rowing, I did a bit of hockey, tried out netball, didn't think it was for me. And there's also a Natural Sciences Society, who they hold talks every week, and you can actually find loads of different talks across Cambridge to broaden your kind of knowledge or just interest. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I've ended up getting involved in so many other things that I spend as much time on everything else as I do on my degree, it seems. So went in the Punt Society, and so I feel like I'm submerged under a bit of admin, but actually I quite like the responsibility, and I do get a lot of time for meeting other people, and you know, there's a lot of rowing socials as well, because I've ended up being social secretary for the men's side of the boat club this year. And then, you know, we have like themed swaps with other boat clubs, which are really good fun. And yeah, just I don't know. I just seem constantly busy though, or doing dinners with friends is a big one that really helps me feel both at home and like connected with other people.
Great, thanks so much. Yeah, obviously a lot of you touched on some quite of the sporty side of Cambridge. Just to add to people listening, there is also a lot of other clubs and societies available. So Cambridge has a really active theatre scene, and sort of lots of other varying things. I think it's fair to say that there's a society for anything that you would want to get involved in at Cambridge. And I don't think I know anyone at Cambridge that just does their degree and doesn't do anything else on the side. Great, so another question, what is the accommodation like at St John's?
The accommodation is really nice. Last year, and I was in one of the small rooms, and it was still quite a lot larger than any of the rooms at other colleges. So, and I was in Cripps, which is sort of the newish part, sort of out the back of the college, and you have sort of a kitchen that's shared between 8 people, and then most people on our floor had en suites. I didn't, and it was really, really nice. Next year, I'm in a house outside of college, and it's called a hostel, with 3 of my friends. So I'm sort of looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, no, the accommodation is really, really nice. It's so yeah, in first year, so I got really lucky because in first year when you join, it's all just randomly done on a ballot, and I got really lucky in first year, so I got a nice ensuite room. So yeah, in first year you're in the back of college in a place called Cripps usually, and then in second year you'll use a lot of people choose to do something called double set, like they could say in the double set. So 2 people will share a kitchen and a toilet. And then in third year, you sort of get the pick of the best rooms in the college. I guess because most people it's their last year here, so college give you the luxury of choosing the best room. So I had a really nice sort of full-on studio. So I had my own kitchen, my own toilet, my own living room, and a bedroom all to myself, and that was really nice.
Yeah, and adding to what Faris was saying, I feel like all the different rooms in college has a great view. Like my room last year had the view of the Bridge of Sighs. If you're in North Chapel Court, you might have the view of the chapel. Even in Cripps, you'll have like view of the gardens. In New Court, you'll have the view of the backs. Just anywhere you might find a room, you'll have a great view. And lots of green areas, which I like.
Yeah, I got lucky with a nice Cripps room in first year. Second year, I was in a house living with 12 other people, but there were 2 kitchens and a living room. So it was actually a really great place to live. And then this year, I'm in this room that I'm in currently is K8 in second court, which is a really nice big room, a lot of space, nice windows, and looks out into third court, and you can see the chapel right to third court. And yeah, so it's good accommodation. And I think, you know, I mean, I say I was lucky, but I also know that all the rooms are good. So you can't really be unlucky. You can just be less lucky.
Great, thank you. So a few more sort of general questions now. So do you feel like pressure being at Cambridge?
Obviously, there's a bit of pressure because everyone seems so clever and you're literally with the top academics pretty much in the world. But I don't think they put any sort of extra pressure on you. Sort of, you're expected to do the work and you're expected to work hard. And obviously the supervisor's a bit disappointed if you turn up having not done any of the work. But equally, I think that if I was at any other uni, I'd still want to have done the work. And I don't think there's that much extra in Cambridge. It's just sort of, you just want to invest the academics because that they are top in their field.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the pressure sort of internally driven. So I've never felt pressure from anyone, any of the supervisors or the academics to work harder. It's always just I want to work harder and just do better. So that's I think the biggest thing. I think that's why one thing I really enjoy about being here.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of pressure, especially when you start comparing yourself to others, because I think there's a lot of really intelligent people. But if you focus on yourself and you do the best you can and get involved as much as possible and do as much as you can, then I think it is definitely manageable.
Yeah, I think going on from what Emily said, that quite a lot of people get the like I don't belong here, imposter vibes, but a lot of people have that, so it's not unusual, and I think that does come from the pressure. And you know, especially if you've come from a place where you're the top in the school, and now you're in a place where everyone here is really smart and bright and good, and you know, you see some people on, they seem to always be in the library, and you're like, well, you know, am I spending enough time working? But different people work in different ways, and you know, it's important to take the time out as well and look after yourself. And you know, that's why the JCR puts on so many welfare events, and that's why it's so important to do some sport or extracurricular as well. And you know, a lot of people do really encourage that. Obviously, you do get a bit of pressure put on you from your DOS because they want you to do well, you know, in the way that I think a lot of parents do. But at the same time, I do think most of the pressure comes from the individuals, and so it's trying to find that balance between having the pressure on yourself to motivate yourself to do the work that you have to do, but at the same time, not putting pressure on yourself to make every second about it when there's so much more to both life and to the university experience.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you would change about Cambridge if you could?
Oh, difficult going first on this. I don't really think so. It kind of has everything. It has sort of really intelligent academics, and the course is amazing. And if you want social life, which I think everyone really does, that's there too. There is a good clubbing scene. There's so many opportunities in terms of societies, and food's really nice. So I don't think I would change anything.
Yeah, no, quite happy with the way it is, to be honest. I don't know, maybe make the terms a bit longer. You know, it's quite short, so you sort of you spend sort of 40% of your time at home, and I think I'd rather be at Cambridge, to be fair. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I'd rather just stick around for longer.
I think some parts of the course can get a bit too detailed, and they don't quite prepare you or tell you like whether you actually you need to know these details or not. And a lot of it is just, yeah, so much. Probably change like the way they kind of deliver that, maybe, or less detail in certain bits.
I don't know. I think for me, you gotta take it as a whole. I think it's an incredible place here, and particularly John's. You know, obviously I'm biased, but it is the best college. And it's just, I don't know, I feel like it'd almost be arrogant to say, is there a way of changing it? Because it is what it is. And, you know, you've got to love it with its, like, take it as a whole, love all of it. But yeah, like Faris, I just wish I could be here for longer.
Great. And finally, what top tip would you give to prospective applicants?
Well, I think it's a bit cliche, but it's just to apply, because it's such an amazing experience when you can't really get anywhere else. And yes, the application process is competitive, but you might get in, and I really think it's worth it because it's such an amazing place.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Just give it a go and find a college that you like and just go for it. I feel if you want to come here, that is like, don't feel pressured to come here if you don't want to, but I would recommend it, and it's a lot of fun.
I think to be confident in yourself, be confident in what you know, your achievements, and really put that across. Yeah,
throw yourself into it. You know, there's so many things to do here that we've touched on, from sports to whatever else. Like, do it all. Make the most of it. Squeeze every drop out of it. Go to church, or get involved in a religious thing. Go get involved in some sports. Go get involved in some drama. Like, just absolutely throw yourself into it, because there's nowhere else like it, really. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us and answering the questions. I'm sure everyone watching has got a lot out of this. And to everyone watching, thanks so much for joining. Do feel free to drop us any questions at any point. And yeah, thanks so much. Bye.